Hello, my lovely listeners. I'm Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns. Welcome to this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss. This is our first episode. I thought we'd just introduce ourselves to our listeners so that they know who we are, what we're all about, and, maybe a few fun facts. So, Mary, I thought I'd introduce you if that's okay, and then you can introduce me. So, my lovely listeners, you'll hear me. I use some very funny phrases. I'm always calling people lovelies, so that's just who I am. Mary, my gorgeous friend, is a biochemist, a medical doctor, a medical hypnotherapist. She specialises in compassion-focused therapy, and she's a stress management guru. On top of all of this, she has lived experience with ongoing, issues around insulin resistance and some health things, and has polycystic ovarian syndrome. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. And Mary, being the guru that she is, was able to reverse this, improve her fertility, and is now the mother of the most beautiful 7-year-old girl.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Lucy. She is a pretty cute 7-year-old, it must be said. Well, I would love to introduce my colleague here, Dr. Lucy Burns. Dr. Lucy is also a medical doctor. She's a board-certified lifestyle medicine physician, a medical hypnotherapist, and a behavioural change specialist. Her genius zone is absolutely in mindset management, and she is the analogy queen. She can make even the most complex concepts simple and understandable with her legendary analogies.
Oh, thanks, Maz. That's super kind. So, my lovelies, what we have, put together over the last couple of years is this program that we have brought together all the aspects that we both have, each of our skill sets, and brought them in to be a complete health and weight loss program that we are, using with our patients in our clinics. We're using with our beautiful women that we help online, and we just want to share some of those strategies with you. Mary, would you like to tell our listeners maybe some of your history just in relation to your health and weight loss journey?
I would say that I probably struggled with my weight my entire life until recent years. So as a child, I would have been intermittently overweight and can remember feeling greatly self-conscious about that at times. Throughout my teens and 20s, I could lose weight pretty easily by sort of going on a crash diet, but it would always come back. And I kind of always hovered around the sort of the high end of a normal BMI, sometimes higher, sometimes a bit lower. And then when I hit medical school and got quite stressed and overwhelmed by all the pressures, my weight really, really piled on then. And it was about that time that I discovered that I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I was a health-conscious human. I definitely wanted to be well. And so I saw doctors and dietitians at that time. And I followed the advice that I was given to eat my whole grains and to eat regularly, make sure I never missed a snack. And it certainly didn't work. That old, outdated, traditional advice based on the 1970s food pyramid. And I didn't get any better, which was very frustrating for me. But I got on with my life and focused on other things. And it wasn't until I stumbled across a low-carb paleo challenge that I actually got well for the first time. And it was just an accident. I was working in community palliative medicine, and my friends and colleagues, some of the nurses, were doing a challenge with a local gym and asked me to come along. And so I did. I didn't know anything about low carb. I didn't know anything about the paleo diet, but I just jumped in because my friends were doing it. And I felt horrible for 2 weeks. I now know that was the transition period. But then after 2 weeks, I felt amazing eating low carb real food in this instance, a sort of a paleo version of low-carb real food. And the weight just fell off me, and my polycystic ovarian symptoms completely disappeared just with food. So this was a real light bulb moment in my life, and I took a deep dive into the science behind this because I was a scientist before I was a doctor and I needed to know, and it was amazing. I uncovered what I think many people in the science community have known for a while about the true metabolic causes of weight gain and obesity and chronic illness, and the true treatment, which is to get control of your hormones using real food. And I haven't looked back since.
Such a wonderful story, Mary. And I think, you've touched on some things that we will be talking about as this podcast progresses. In particular, all the advice that we've been given. And in fact, embarrassingly, I gave out in my, years before I realised that the advice I was giving, was not right. So much so that I, now often talk about, imagine if everything you'd been told about weight loss was wrong. And in fact, that's what I felt happened to me and to you and to probably every other woman out there or man who's been trying to lose weight, the traditional, and I'm using air quotes, which nobody can see, but the traditional dieting way.
You're absolutely right. It's not about the calories. It's all about the hormones. And I know that we will go into this later.
It's not maths, it's chemistry.
It is not maths, it's chemistry. So, Lucy, I know that the listeners would like to know a bit about your story as well.
Sure. I was a child of the 70s and 80s when the low-fat movement started, and we lived a very low-fat lifestyle at home and also probably a diet culture lifestyle at home. My mum was either on a diet or not on a diet. I was either on a diet or not on a diet. I became an expert dieter. I was actually really good at dieting. So that was really how I managed my weight in younger years, was I'd just go on a super strict diet and then I'd be off the diet and back on a bender. Then eventually I'd go back on a diet and then be off the diet. And it was just this yo-yoing of on a diet or on a bender. Until one day when I was in my 40s, suddenly the diet wasn't working. And of course, I was obsessed by the scales. I was always standing on them, sometimes 6 times a day just to make sure, might have a wee and hop on the scales because my life was all about the numbers on the scales. And so, I think I initially stumbled on low carb as another, and again, more air quotes, diet. That was my thought. Oh, well, this might work. And it did. It was wonderful. And largely because throughout my history of yo-yo dieting, I had also become insulin resistant. So I got to my heaviest, what I thought was mortifying weight, heavier than when I was pregnant with my children. And believe me, I put on 30 kilos with each child. So to be heavier than that without a baby on board, I just thought, well, this is rubbish. Anyway, low carb, it certainly worked. I initially it was all about the weight loss. That was all I was interested in until I discovered all these other benefits, which I now know we call non-scale victories. And the biggest non-scale victory for me has been the idea of food freedom and understanding my mind, which I can now do once I was no longer driven by hunger. So previously I was always hungry, and the only way I could lose weight was to white knuckle my way through the hunger, use willpower, and I had a lot of it, but that didn't actually address any of the underlying thought patterns that I had. So when I went low carb and was able to actually just, for once in my life, lose weight without being hungry, it was like a miracle. I was then able to also work on mindset. And that, my lovely friends, is what we want for you. We, I guess, talk a lot about marrying the physiology, which is the hormonal component, and the psychology. And really, those two go hand in hand or hand in glove, whatever term you like to use, both need to be managed for long-term weight loss. If you want to lose weight for, a couple of months, then don't bother addressing the psychology. But most people don't want to do that, do they? Most people want permanent weight loss.
Wonderful. I think it would be good if we could tell people what they can expect from this Real Health and Weight Loss series. What are we going to be doing?
Basically, every week, Mary and I are going to be delivering an episode that goes for about 20 minutes. We know that you're busy people. We know that, you haven't got time necessarily to sit down and watch a 1-hour masterclass every week. But every week you can tune into us and we will go through all of those steps that address the physiology. And the one thing I want to remind people is that the treatment of overweight or obesity is different to the prevention. And this is the problem. We have so many people going, just do this and you'll be like me, and I've never been overweight in my life. But Mary and I both have been. We know what it's like. And I can tell you now the treatment is different to the prevention. So each week we're going to bring you, I guess, a snippet, a snapshot, a part of our program. We're going to be delivering you what we call an actionable step, something that you can focus on each week so that this podcast brings you value, that you can break it down and just work on one thing at a time. Our future episodes are going to be all about you because, my lovely listeners, we want really to reverse what's going on in our world. Our world is full of chronic disease. It is full of people who are unable to live their best lives. And at the end of the day, that's what we all want, isn't it? And until next time, thanks for listening.